Hi guys, it's Phil
And Liam
from Die Hard on a Black, and we're excited to talk to you about a brand new podcast we're launching called 48 Hours of Buddy Movies.
That's right, folks. 48-hour-long
approximately
episodes exploring 48 different buddy movies, beginning with the original classic that started it all, Walter Hill's 1982 masterpiece, 48 Hours, starring Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy.
And just like Die Hard on a Blank, our new show will explore the influence of 48 Hours on the action genre, one buddy movie at a time.
We'll be covering iconic franchises such as the Beverly Hills Cop movies, the Stakeout movies, the Bad Boys movies, classics of the genre like Running Scared,
Hyams Hive Rise Up,
Midnight Run, Red Heat, Tango and Cash, The Hard Way,
plus tough thrillers such as To Live and Die in LA, Black Rain, Point Break, Training Day, and The Way of the Gun.
As well as a few wild cards that you might not expect, such as RoboCop, Alien Nation, and, of course, Phil's favorite,
Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man.
So if you're a fan of two buddies talking buddy movies,
then 48 Hours of Buddy Movies is for you.
Visit patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies to subscribe for the price of 1 cup of coffee a month.
See you in the squad car.
Or walking to the squad car, mildly irritated that we've been paired off.
Wherever. That's patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies to subscribe. Welcome to Die Hard on a Blank, the podcast where we explore the influence of Die Hard on action cinema, one action movie at a time. I'm Philip Cawthorne, and with me as always is Liam Billingham, and today's film is Dredd.
It's Die Hard in a dystopia.
Yes.
Whoa.
We played
Bet
around
you
with
didn't see that coming.
We played
Dave
around
Palace
with it.
or whoever happens to be.
We thought Die Hard in Mega City 1, Die Hard
in Peachtrees.
in a mega block in Peachtrees, yeah.
Right.
But I thought
Die Hard and I could fix Lena Headey in this movie. You decide. I'll keep it under wraps. Call me.
Keep what goes on in our text stays.
I like your
private.
scar. I like your scar. I could fix you.
Oh, gosh. You know what was interesting though about this in terms of framing the conversation as Die Hard in a dystopia is correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Watson, but am I right in saying this is the first comic book adaptation that we've done on the show?
Oh, yes.
I think it is,
because
right?
There was some discussion when we were going to do 200 movies, which later proved insane, of doing Die Hard and Gotham Dark Knight Rises.
That's right.
But
yes.
I actually think that's a stretch, just because it happens to have sort of a Die Hard last hour. But I think this is... Dave Palace, if I'm wrong, let me know. Or someone out there let us know. Mark, Dave.
Someone can tell us.
All the fans.
The myriad of mistakes that we make.
Yeah.
But I think...
They don't need to be my dad. They could just...
But yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting one to explore from that standpoint. I'm going to come in hard and say I absolutely love this movie. I am so pumped about it. I think it's amazing. When did you first? Well, let's sort of go back a little bit. When did you first see the film? But also, what does kind of Judge Dredd mean to you, if anything?
To be honest with you, Judge Dredd never really meant that much to me beyond from the out the gate kind of like complicated Sylvester Stallone movie, which I'm not critiquing the movie because I haven't seen it. I've seen it on Fox television.
I just watched
96.
it, so I have some thoughts about it.
But like it was kind of like, oh, Sylvester. I mean, the image to me before this was Rob Schneider looking at Sylvester Stallone going like, "I am the law," which and so it was sort of like I think I saw it on TV. I have very little memory of Dredd, this version coming out.
Okay.
Probably sometime in the last 3 years. I think I watched the first 35 minutes of it when it was on Netflix. And turned it off, not because it wasn't good, but because I had to go do something. Okay. So this week was the first time I ever beheld the entire film. And it was a real roller coaster for me.
Yeah.
The first 20 minutes, I was like, I fucking hate this. I hate this character. This is obnoxious, fascistic.
Yeah.
And of course it is. I mean, that's kind of like, that's the point.
Yeah.
But I was kind of like, as I have, done a little bit of research about Dredd.
Yep.
And I think you're going to be able to speak to this because this is a real British product, right?
Very much so. Yeah. We're going to get into the socio-political context in which it was hatched.
And then I got to the middle half and I was like, okay, okay. But then I think from the moment, for me, and spoilers for Dredd, I guess I'll just say it, not really.
Yep.
When the backup shows up and actually enters the building, I was like, oh, now we're cooking with gas. Mm-hmm. And we can talk about why when we get to what's this movie about.
Okay.
But I ended up at a letterbox 4 stars for this movie.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's...
Because the initial texts you were sending me were fairly kind
I think you gotta
cool.
I think you gotta go with the journey that Dredd goes through in this movie to really admire how much discipline there is to the making of this. Is a very disciplined movie.
Yes.
It feels like a comic book, complimentary on the whole. And I think it says something about Alex Garland as an artist that I want to
absolutely
get into. Phil's making it darker, and he's really
going. Well, I can't. I'm a vampire these days. They're nocturnal hours. So the bright, exactly. I'm like the lights, the natural
Phil
light.
Get it off me over there.
Get it off me. Okay.
Now I know you're a fan.
Dude. I gotta tell you, when I rewatching it, and I just rewatched it like I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago, and then I was like, you know what, to prep the episode, and then I bought the 4K because I was like, you know what, I want to own this, and I watched it again.
Get this too on 4K, to be honest.
Worth it.
Yeah.
And I was like, absolutely. I was like, it's like a rock concert for me, if that makes sense. There's something about it that just feels so kind of like like when someone is just nailing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they're nailing, especially because there had been a sort of less successful adaptation of this material that left a lot of the fans feeling a bit, disappointed with how the character was realized on the big screen, even though I actually think there's some amazing stuff in the 1995 Judge Dredd, which I want to give that a fair shake briefly when we get to it. But this is just, I love Alex Garland. I think he is an amazing storyteller, writer, and filmmaker. And just the way that this is just absolutely executes on what it's doing, it's very, very clear straight away. And actually, if you watch the 95 version, you kind of see where the wobble is. Usually I generally think within 5 to 10 minutes, even sometimes much less, of a movie, whether you're in good hands or not, or whether there's like a strong tone, a strong firm hand, a clear vision of what they're trying to do. And you also know when it's like watered down or weak or confused.
Right.
And this just straight away, I just felt this knows exactly what it is. It's perfectly like cast. It's the tone is amazing, and I think
tone to pull off.
It is because it's pretty kind of like uncompromising, and I think it's extraordinary. And to your point as well, I think it is one of the best. This might sound like a sort of redundant statement to some extent, but I think it's kind of taken for granted. It does feel like a living comic book. It really does feel truthful and authentic to the style of the source material and the visuals as well, and obviously the overall mood and just the way that the character is realized. I think it's extraordinary. I love this movie, and I have a bunch of different thoughts about it, and I think we'll kind of do some interesting discussion about its socio-political relevance and the times in which these ideas were what they came out of and and how they feel relevant now. But should we get some fast facts on the streets of Mega City One?
Facts. Can do your Dredd impression?
I have to. I can't just do it off the.
It's really tough.
I've got to just.
Carl really gets the.
Boy,
I was describing
is
this
he good.
Movie earlier, I kept saying Keith. And someone's like, wait, is Keith Urban?
That's a very different movie.
Yeah, that'd be very... He like pulls out a guitar at one point.
Yeah, that's
I gotta go home. I was married to Nicole Kidman and I have the greatest life imaginable.
Okay. Dredd, the 2012 version, was directed by Pete Travis, although there's some interesting kind of background controversy around some of that we may or may not touch on.
Not a name I was very familiar with.
Yeah.
I've always associated the movie with Garland.
Right.
And I think there's a reason for that.
Right. We'll get into it, but to be clear, he is the credited director of the film, and has done some very impressive work, including a documentary that you would love, a docudrama that you would love, about the Omar bombing that was Paul Greengrass kind of godfathered.
Developed, that's in the Greengrass Papers book that I have.
The screenplay was by Alex Garland, based on Judge Dredd, the graphic novel, long-running graphic novel / comic book series, which was originally created by John Wagner and Carlos Ezquerra, and we'll talk about those gentlemen.
Love the closing title that they get the
really
first.
Cool. I mean, they are so involved. They're
Yeah.
so involved, and it treats them with so much more respect, I think, which I love. It stars Karl Urban, Olivia Thirlby, Wood Harris, Lena Headey, distributed by Entertainment Film Distributors in the UK, United International Pictures in South Africa. I don't actually have the US distributor listed here, weirdly. Release date was 11th of July 2012 at Comic-Con, and
that makes sense.
which is interesting, right? Which pretty good space to launch this one. And its wide release was the 7th of September 2012. Budget is estimated, again, it's not super accurate, 30 to 45 million, box office 41.5 million. Was considered despite rapturous fan reception, and general, I think, pretty good reviews, not uniformly good reviews, but for the most part, very, very positive, and the fans loved it. Was considered a bit of was considered a disappointment. But what's interesting about it is in the release. Sorry, I'm so clumsy today. I keep knocking the mic. Apologies.
Don't touch the mic. Do you know what the punishment was?
the 5 years in the ISO cubes.
That's good.
See, it has to be spontaneous. It's the 3D thing. The 3D thing was kind of an albatross on this movie, and apparently the distributors tried to force the issue and deny 2D prints to cinemas because they were really trying to force. Do you remember? I mean, it's weird to look back on. It's like the 3D craze almost feels like COVID, where it feels like kind of this bad dream that happened. Like,
I remember going to see like a fucking Harry Potter movie and not realizing I bought like the 3D, and like they hand me the glasses. I'm like, God damn it!
I'll come in hot and just say I fucking hate that 3D thing. It made me feel sick. It made me feel physically ill.
Yeah.
Fine, if that's your jam, by all means, but don't deny me. Don't force me to have motion sickness.
It's also like a gimmick is the last thing this movie needs for its, like, in a way, the reason this movie works is because it's so unbelievably niche to its audience, right? Like, I suspect, and I could be wrong, that part of the problem with the 94 Judge Dredd, even if it's a good movie, is that, like, I bet there were a lot of comic book fans who were like, it split the difference. Like, they were like, Sylvester Stallone shouldn't play this part. And then there were general audiences that were like, what is this? Right? I feel like it didn't serve anybody.
Yes.
But the way that this movie commits.
Yes.
Like, I know only a little bit about Dredd. I have one Dredd series right here called Mega City Zero that I've read.
Oh, cool.
And it's like very... The movie feels very accurate to what they're doing with the character, you know? And I really, anyway, I just feel like adding the 3D was like a way to entice audiences who weren't going to see this movie anyways because it's a bleak, dystopian subject.
And I could see the way that obviously the 3D sequences, which are mainly during the use of the drug slow-mo, and it's quite interesting learning about the production of that because they were trying to evoke things like, you know, those wildlife documentaries with some, you know, a bird flying out of the water or skimming across the water and the droplets are all so perfect.
That seems like a terrible drug to do.
That type of thing. But so they wanted to experiment with the form. And I think those scenes are cool, but I've only ever seen the film in 2D, and I could give to quote William Friedkin, I could give a flying fucking a rolling donut about 3D.
Well, two points here. One, my Blu-ray player, when I turned on this disc, was like, you don't have a 3D Blu-ray player. And I was like, relax.
Yeah.
Number two.
No one does.
Yeah, exactly. There's one guy.
Right.
Number two, there's what I would say is the worst part of this movie was clearly designed with this in mind, which is the Olivia Thirlby entering Wood Harris's mind sequence, which just does not fit in the movie. And it's from a different movie, in my opinion. In fact, like I was literally like, oof, it's crazy how we are watching a different movie for those 30 seconds, right?
Yes.
You know, and
good point.
Anyway, yeah. So yeah, I think it's like, sure, try it out, but it feels like a real, like, let's make a little extra money because bozos will pay $22 for these tickets instead of $14.
Don't take away the 2D. That was just a huge mistake. And it denies people, the chance to see this amazing movie. I just think you got to give people a choice. I will say there are certain 3D. I remember going to see Tron Legacy. And that was like, I thought it was very clever in how it worked.
You love Tron.
I do love Tron.
You're a big Tron head.
Love Tron. I love all three of them, and I've seen them all on the big screen.
They're playing the new. There's a hi-fi vinyl place here where you can go have a cocktail and sit in a room in silence and listen to the record. And they're playing the Tron Ares soundtrack next week, which I think, like, Phil, you would just sit there and be like, "This is Philly special."
It's amazing.
Just in the dark with an old-fashioned listening to Tron.
What are you doing to me?
You would fall asleep, unfortunately.
But I'd be very happy in the process of tumbling off my bar stool.
Hey, that's what matters to me,
Yes. Well, the point I was just going to make about that was what I loved about their use of 3D was that the scenes that weren't in the grid that were in the real world were 2D. You wore the glasses the whole time, but once that you moved into the fantastical, phantasmagoria of the grid, it converted to 3D. You didn't have to do anything. It was very well done, and it was very logical and immersive, and it was like that was a brilliant use of 3D, I thought, and I always remember that being a unique theatrical experience because of it. But I remember going to see Avatar the first time, and I was just like, I just really struggled with it.
I didn't go to Avatar in 3D because I avoid. It's like my little snobbiness. I'm like, I just want the movie.
Yeah,
don't try to impress me.
So it's just a shame that this magnificent film suffered a little bit at the box office, and because of this 3D decision, and but there has been a clamoring ever since to kind of do more and do a sequel, and maybe even, what I think would actually be amazing would be like a prestige TV series.
Yeah, no, this is built for like Amazon
HBO,
could pay for this too, or something
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's one of the few
AMC.
It's one of the few things where I'm like, a TV show this would be good.
It works
actually.
perfectly because it's like a police procedural.
Yeah,
it fits, but you could do something really cool with it, like they did, whether it was a miniseries or a long-running thing, like The Penguin or something like that, like very,
I didn't watch that,
production,
but people loved it.
Yeah. Anywho, why the golly gumdrops are we talking about it on this show? Well, we will explain in a section that we like to call
Die Hard DNA.
Nice. I was, by the way, do you know this is first of all, we didn't even say that this is the penultimate episode of the show, but it's also
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, all right.
This is
we'll
the
stay
last
off
one.
it.
The last one.
It's the last one we'll be doing together, just the two of us.
Okay, I don't want to talk about it. But
okay.
Right. We're still going to podcast.
We are
guys.
still going to pod.
You're just going to have to pay us for once. I'm just kidding. I love you.
All right. So why are we talking about it on this show? Die Hard DNA. The macro, of course, is bad guys take over a blank, up to one person or small group to fight back. So it definitely ticks the box in that respect. Here we have gang members taking over a high-rise, trapping two judges inside. The two cops have to work together to fight back and resolve this seemingly unsolvable situation.
Kind of a buddy movie.
Absolutely. I've got kind of a couple of notes about that at the end. The action mostly takes place inside this one skyscraper over the course of a single night. The main character is a gruff cop, a lone wolf type with a scathing, sarcastic sense of humor who frequently talks to himself and his weapon, a la John McClane. You may recall John McClane doing quite a lot of soliloquizing alongside his 9mm Beretta. The hero and the villain are in separate physical spaces for the majority of the film and communicate predominantly over the airwaves, e.g. through the tower's public address system, which both characters take over at certain points, right?
Judge Dredd. Oh, so shit! Good. I peed my pants.
So good. The main villain has a hacker character to help their nefarious plans. They're played by an amazing performance by Domhnall Gleeson. Phenomenal performance.
Actor,
Several key scenes take place on elevators or in and around elevator shafts. This was one that I caught on my third viewing. An explosive stun device is rolled along the ground and detonated to provide a tactical advantage. You may recall Karl's mini hockey puck, as I like to call it, that he rolls along
the glass.
The lobby.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm
right at the beginning.
Right.
He rolls it along to take out the first security
Can
guard.
we pause and go watch Die Hard and then come back?
Here, Dredd has a kind of squash ball type device that he uses for essentially the same purpose. The other cops who show up are either gullible, inept, or immoral, and all of them make the situation even worse than it already is. Themes of class and socioeconomics are pertinent in both films. And finally, the main bad guy is played by a Brit, Lena Headey, and the main villain's ultimate demise recalls that of Hans Gruber in that it involves them falling from a great height to their death.
A lot of falls in this movie.
Gee, I hope that's not a hostage. 48 chromosomes. I thought we could also include, to your
48 chromosomes
from our Patreon, because as well as being a Die Hard movie, this is also a classic buddy movie. Why don't you?
They're mismatched. He's a true believer in the law and the platonic ideal of that idea. He never takes his helmet off. He shoots first, and I guess he judges, shoots, and moves on with his day. Whereas his partner is young, inexperienced, doesn't wear a helmet because she uses intuition, or I should say, uses her ability to read people psychically, whereas he uses a sort of, justice first approach. And I would say at the end of the film, they both come around to each other's perspectives.
Yeah, it's classic paradigm, right? Like, if you were to describe, it does it a huge reductive disservice, but essentially you could describe this story as a gruff, experienced older cop reluctantly teams up with an inexperienced, idealistic young partner to go after a group of scummy criminals. That's every buddy movie that we've done.
You had that. You could have just read that instead of putting me on the spot.
Sorry, I was trying to include you in the show instead of monologuing.
I like it when you monologue.
Okay.
Quick, do a Richard III. Go.
Speaking of that, there was a funny quote, and then we'll take a quick break, but there was a really interesting quote from Stallone about the 95 Judge Dredd many years after the fact, when he was sort of reflecting on its lack of connection. And he sort of said, it was, I'm paraphrasing, the full quote is out there, but essentially he said, I loved the property because it was part of one of my favorite genres, the action morality genre. This is his words, very interesting turn of phrase.
Bill Billingham would eat that up, eat it off a spoon.
Blood money. And and he said, but the thing was, we should have made it funnier. We were trying to make Hamlet, we should have made Hamlet and eggs.
Oh my God.
By the way, first of all, I completely disagree with that. Was actually what was wrong with it, in my opinion, was that they tried to kind of PG-13ify it.
It's also too close to Demolition Man.
Well, I think that was in Sly's head, right? It makes sense. It's 2 years afterwards, and he's thinking, I was able to adroitly balance the action with the sort of with humor in a dystopian sort of sci-fi action movie.
Yeah, though I would say
very different things.
Sorry to interrupt you. I would say that Demolition Man is kind of now looked back on as like kind of a very successful satire that just never blinks, right? Yeah. Whereas it feels like putting Rob Schneider in anything, the movie blinks immediately. Before the movie started, you're blinking. Which is funny because he's in Demolition Man.
And you begin the movie on Rob Schneider's journey in the 95.
Oh, is that true?
But we'll get back into all of this. We should rigidly adhere to our format and take a quick break. We'll be right back.
We're back.
And we're back
How
with
was
our
your
final
break?
section of the show. I sneak myself toward the suspicion that you have cast me as the mouse in your ever-popular cat drama.
That was it, baby. We did it. I'm proud of you.
That was the backhand I've been waiting.
I was just hoping you were going to just be like, "Oh, fuck you." That's how my break was.
Oh, good times. Anatomy of an Action Movie is our main section of the show where we explore the tenets.
We live in a twilight world.
And there are no friends at dusk.
Oh, there are friends at dusk. They podcast together.
Yeah, and the show is moving towards its dusk. Yeah.
Oh.
Just trying to pull at people's heartstrings a little bit here.
Are you guys crying?
Wait till you get to the final episode. Right. The first tenet is the premise, and the premise of Judge Dredd. A little bit of detail. So I'm gonna lay this one out. Okay. So here is the premise of the film. The premise of Dredd, rather, not Judge Dredd. In the futuristic, crime-ridden dystopia of Megacity 1, roving patrols of judges are permitted to dispense on-the-spot justice with the power of judge, jury, and executioner. In this context, the hard-bitten, highly experienced Judge Dredd, Karl Urban, is reluctantly partnered with rookie candidate Judge Anderson, Olivia Thirlby, who has psychic abilities due to a genetic mutation. In the process of investigating a triple homicide in the towering high-rise known as Peach Trees, the two judges incur the wrath of the culprit, ferocious and powerful local gangster Mama, played by Lena Headey, who seals off the building and declares war on the pair of them, meaning that the two vastly outnumbered judges must use all their skills and guile to survive an onslaught of attacks from the building's seemingly infinite number of marauding criminals. Now, I thought it was interesting that, again, doing kind of some of my research, and it's interesting that we've done this just after the raid. Some of the reviews of this criticized it for being too similar to the raid, and there were even accusations of being slightly plagiarizing it.
Do people know the production?
Well, exactly.
Time
exactly.
This movie been in development for like 15 years.
Exactly.
Probably.
That was the counter argument. But it is interesting that they both came out around the same time and were very, very similar concepts. But yet, for me, the raid, which we talked about, that I'm very respectful of and can appreciate the filmmaking as being really extraordinary, especially on that budget. But I didn't really do it for me from a storytelling standpoint. But this film, which is very similar in terms of its actual the basic story, I absolutely love. So I think that's kind of interesting. Like they're basically, in some respects, you could say they're almost the same.
Well,
but yet they're so different.
I think the glimmer of hope that this movie offers is much stronger, which I'm open to the opinion that that's not true. But I just think this is a more satisfyingly written movie. I do think they both most movies learned one wrong lesson from Die Hard. And I'll get into that at some point.
You don't want to tell us now? It's another one of your take teases?
I think... Take tease. I think one of the things, we talked about, like, I think they're in our pal Jason Bailey's book, which is coming out. There's a story about how D'Souza was like in a studio meeting and he heard someone go like, "Oh, it would have been the movie with some movie that had come out that weekend that had not done well at the box office." He was like, "Oh, there should have been more bad guys in them. We didn't have enough bad guys in the movie, right?" And he was like, "Oh, they learned the wrong lesson." And I think one of the reasons Die Hard is so good is that, like, there's 11 terrorists. Mm-hmm. And they all have personalities. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think that this movie, and to some extent, to a large extent, The Raid, they just, like, throw throngs of people at the hero. And I get it, but, like...
From the automatic victim dispenser,
exactly.
to quote
and
Roger Ebert.
Exactly. And it just gets monotonous to me. Yeah. And, like, I would have loved Lena Headey to have my phone number, but also to... but
still time.
Okay, I know. But also to, like, have a Karl. Like a more direct Karl. She has that guy, but he's kind of dispatched of quickly.
That's not a bad point, because actually, again, I think of another example of dystopian sci-fi that's amazing is RoboCop, and every member of the gang is an awesome character.
Get away from me, man!
Exactly.
Yeah,
you've got
totally.
Clarence Boddicker, you've got Steve Min, you've got Leon, right? Like,
can we do
Emil.
a very quick tangent about RoboCop?
Sure.
Criterion Channel is doing a series this month or next, I can't remember which, called like Old Editions, because a long time ago, Criterion Collection released RoboCop on Laserdisc.
Oh, wow.
And they're putting the movie up on the channel with all of the special features that are no longer available because the disc is OOP. So, like, just there might be stuff on that disc you've never seen about RoboCop.
I will also, just apropos of nothing, highly recommend the RoboDoc documentary. That was absolutely incredible. I loved it, and I believe they're going to do one about RoboCop 2 as well, which this has a lot in common with.
I was going to say
Frank Miller, like, super dark, dystopian,
they're
world
critiques
building.
of the privatization of life. They both are very much critiquing their various evil politicians from the era in which they were made, I would say.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's get into, we'll go back to the beginning of the inception point here and talk about when this character was originally created and the journey that brings us to this film. So I think it's all pretty interesting stuff. So Judge Joseph Dredd is a fictional character created by writer John Wagner and artist Carlos Esquerra. First appeared in the second issue of the British weekly anthology comic 2000 AD in 1977, where they were trying to capitalize. They were sort of seeing sci-fi had been cold for a while as a genre in both film, really, and in comics. It wasn't a popular genre, but then they were aware that Star Wars was coming and they kind of wanted to capitalize on that. And if you look at the history of sci-fi, it all changes. Shortly after that, you get Alien, and then Dune and Blade Runner, blah, 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 right? Yeah. And it really all began with Star Wars, and the same was true in the comic industry. So he became the magazine's longest running character. In 1990, he got his own title, the Judge Dredd magazine. John Wagner is Scottish. Carlos Esquerra is Spanish. And interesting. So I watched there's an excellent documentary that's called something like 35 Years of Judge Dredd that's on the 4K that lays a lot of this stuff out. And interestingly, Carlos Esquerra spoke about coming from Spain and living in under Franco, living in under a fascist regime. And how a lot of the imagery in the film, because he did the visuals. Wagner is the writer. Carlos Esquerra is the artist, right? So he does creates the images. So he essentially designed the character, and therefore all of these things like the eagle that he said for him was very much about evoking fascist cultures.
Yeah, whether it was
the Romans, the Nazis. And he mentioned coming from Spain and the Franco regime. So I thought that was fascinating to me.
And I think it's important to say that, like, if you were born between 1940 and 1980 in Spain, you lived under Franco. And that, like, his time in power there was so long. And I think people think of it as, it's World War II. No, that was a long period of time.
So I think it's very interesting. And then, of course, at the end of I think Thatcher got in the first time late 70s, shortly after this.
I believe it was 77.
I want to say 79, but I could be
wrong.
You're
right. It is 79 she gets in, and she's in till 90.
Yeah.
But she runs the Conservative Party from 75
and she'd been around. Yeah, she'd been around
yeah.
Before that. The specter of Mrs. Thatch.
There's no such thing as a society.
The lady's not returning. So you have this interesting combination of a Scot and a Spaniard, both from very different cultures, but could have this understanding of, and also Megacity 1 is American, right? So they're also they're looking at American culture. They're looking at what's going on there. There's a shift of politics there to the right when Reagan gets in 80.
Thank God we nipped that in the bud.
And so these two things are running parallel.
Right.
Thatcherism in the UK. And Reaganism in the US.
Do you think you could, in a couple sentences, for folks that might not be as up on Thatcher, describe like what Thatcherism is? I don't think you need to give a political.
To quote Friar Laurie for the second time on this episode, I'll just say an embarrassing, ludicrous monstrosity that makes one frankly ashamed to be British, and her ideas and standards are a stain on our national heritage.
God bless you, brother.
So essentially, someone that was. I don't know if crypto-fascist is going too far, but somebody that would low-key demonize immigrants and try to smash the unions, and was a real hard line right-winger, and remains a deeply unpopular figure to this day. I mean, there was when Margaret Thatcher died in the UK, you may remember that song Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, went to number 1. Like that said that even that was still the level of anger and hatred about her policies. And I think also her sort of her persona as well. Persona was so sort of nasty and cruel
Can I find just a very direct comparison that I think will lead us into this movie? I read this really interesting book, or have been reading on and off for a couple of years, called Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is no relationship to the movie, but is about sort of like, when does postmodernism begin? And it identifies a specific moment in history, but one of the things the book discusses you're going to have to clean up some of my terminology here, because I think this is that when Margaret Thatcher's government decided to sell off social housing and allow people to buy their homes and sort of basically destroy the social housing system that had been in place in the UK for a long time, it's like a huge step forward in terms of like, we're not going to give these people support anymore. Like, if you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you're essentially a loser.
Yes.
And I think what's interesting is this movie takes that aspect of Thatcherism to its logical decree, which is like, let's put 30,000 people in a tower that they never leave. There's 96% unemployment. And let's let it be ruled over by, I don't know.
Unemployment was rife in the early 80s as a major issue as well.
Right. Yeah.
That was a big deal.
So I think this movie is playing with like, what would you do if you got people on the toll,
they're basically
so to
thrown to the dogs,
right?
Essentially,
you're
right?
on your own. There's no such thing as a society.
There's no such thing as society. The poor are on your own. And, and the interesting thing about Margaret Thatcher as well, as I recall, was actually she was from very humble origins herself. So I think there's a sort of thing that goes on. I'm playing pop psychology where it's sort of like, well, if I can do it, that's why I think a lot of actually very successful people, be they athletes or in some cases big movie stars, drift to the right because they think I'm self-made. I had to do it the hard way. Why should we give people handouts? That type of thing. So it's actually kind of interesting that Margaret Thatcher wasn't sort of a silver spoon person, interestingly, but yet she seemed to have this utter contempt
and disdain
for the working class, essentially the working people in the country. So it's interesting that this story, bringing it back to Judge Dredd and to the mythology, would take these, and you see these all over the UK, these tower blocks that are brutalist structures, and they feel there's still a lot of them around. They feel very sort of communist block, actually.
They don't know what to do with them in a lot of cases.
And in some cases, there's actual social policies intentional in London that are like, they want you to be living cheek and jowl with the poor and the rich, to be very reductive about it. They actually don't want these, at least historically, they didn't want these enclaves of, this is a super rich area, this is, where I used to live in Clerkenwell, in like Farringdon, quite a fancy area, but there would be like a stone's throw away, you would see there were these types of tower blocks that were very much like what you see realized as peach trees, just magnified. So it's interesting just to trace some of this back to see what were the ingredients that went into this piece, what was going on in terms of the aesthetics and things that inspired Esquerra, and things that were going on in global politics and in local politics to the people that were creating this.
It's so interesting, totally, yeah.
Go ahead. Then you have these Brits that come in and take, then the American version. Okay, so let's talk about the 95 version for a second. So I want to say there were some amazing people involved in that, and some of them directly connected to what we're doing. One of them is Andrew Vajna, the infamous Uber producer who did First Blood and did a ton of action movies and was on Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Took over for Joel Silver, I think, right?
Is that right?
Yeah, because they were in Bailey's book. This is a walking advertisement. They were like, I'm sorry, the director, why is his name escaping my brain?
Director of which movie?
Die Hard.
Oh, John McTiernan.
John McTiernan was like, I'm not working with Silver again. Like, there was a huge, and like Vajna took over. And also because they pre-sold distribution rights abroad, and he was really, really good at that. But if I'm remembering Jason's book, which I read in a flurry last week, a big part of it was the dynamics between, that's a big dick contest.
And that's actually very critical, because while Joel Silver's personality is legendary, and enough said, what he was able to do in these films that the 95 film loses its way with a little bit, is he was a master at getting the tone right, that these films were like hardcore action films that were really funny, but they weren't action comedies. If you look at Joel Silver's like background, right, of like 48 Hours, and they were also cool, right? It was cool.
Fashion, the dress, the people.
The music,
totally.
Everything, right? Like it was on the pulse of the culture. 48 Hours, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, and then going on to use a directly relevant example of like Demolition Man, of how to nail that tone and have films that are stuffed with humor, but not have them become a comedy. So bringing us to 95, and the other two people that worked on it that were brilliant writers, William Wisher and of course Stephen E. D'Souza, right, who's a phenomenal writer, wrote a little movie called Die Hard that you might be familiar with, and
I've
48
heard
Hours,
of it. Yeah.
and many, many more, and worked with Joel Silver several times, including on Commando. He was uniquely skilled as well at getting that tone right, of like films that are chock full of humor, but are still fundamentally really robust, muscular action films. Bringing us to the 95 Judge Dredd, I felt that when Stallone walks in, he basically kind of plays the character for laughs. He sort of straight
like a John
away
Spartan kind of deal.
I think and it's interesting. Yet it's like the distinction is so subtle. The tonal dial from Demolition Man that gets it spot on to Judge Dredd that is just a fraction off, but then you're miscalibrated for the whole movie, and it kind of goes astray. And I think it's because Stallone just sort of thought that he didn't commit to be like, this guy is a brutal fascist enforcer and he's a complicated character. Instead, he wanted to be like, that's kind of funny, and I'm quite funny, as it turns out, as we saw with Demolition Man, so I'm going to be a bit funny. And you just see that there's this tension between, is it an R, is it a PG-13? It begins with Rob Schneider. Dredd's not even in it for the first 10 minutes. So you have Rob Schneider doing his like shtick, and which, fine, I think in that time we all kind of enjoyed Rob Schneider doing his thing. Things are different. Things are a bit different around him now, but fine. And but then there's other problems with the film. One, it's all very soundstagey. It's very Blade Runner light. It looks like a load of sets, and it's just. But actually, there's amazing stuff in it, and it tries to explore a really interesting theme, because you have these extraordinary actors doing really good work. Max von Sydow and Jürgen Prochnow play like two members of the council that have different views about law and different views about because Prochnow's character is like, lawlessness is so rampant, we should basically shift the law so that we execute more execute people for lesser crimes. It's almost like a population control, and like really crack down on this stuff because the crime is so bad. Max von Sydow is like, that's not what, he's more honorable. He's like, I won't be part of that. That is, straight up fascism. It's really intelligent really stuff. But then there's also like a sequence where it's like Rob Schneider doing his sort of silly stuff, fine. But then there's a sequence with like Scott Wilson and actually a young Ewan Bremner playing these grotesque, cannibalistic, monstrous characters in the cursed earth that try to eat them. And one of them is a truly grotesque, half-human, dismembered cyborg that's really disgusting to look at. So it's basically it's not an R, it's not a PG-13. It's trying to kind of square that circle of like, and I get why. It's like a big studio movie. I actually think Stallone is really good casting for Dredd, and they nailed the casting of his brother, which is a great performance from Armand Assante, who does a really fun, flamboyant turn as the villain of the movie. Diane Lane is in it. She's great. Ellen Aim forever, right? It's like there's good stuff in it. And the movie actually, the story of the movie works pretty well, but it's tone. They cannot nail down the tone. And I think Danny Cannon is a fantastic director. I love Young Americans. I love tons of stuff that he's done. Fellow Brit.
Luton. So
made a movie I love called Phoenix from 1997.
You like Geostorm too, right? Didn't you direct Geostorm?
I don't think that was
it's
him.
on his filmography.
Isn't that Dean Devlin?
Let's double check.
You could double check that. Suffice to say, the 95 version, I think there's like
weird. That's a mistake. Okay.
There's great stuff in it. But ultimately they they couldn't kind of commit to a lane. They sort of tried to do both, and as a result, I think they end up leaving either the fans were disappointed, mainstream audiences were maybe a bit
it's
confused.
like it's neither here nor there.
It's neither fish nor fowl, and it's like a good, fun movie. It's very watchable. I still really like a lot of aspects of it, but I can see sort of why it didn't quite work. Flash forward to now, finally, after all of these years and all of the fans feeling like disappointed by that version of it, you get to this version that, to your point, is like, we are going to fully commit to the hardcore, R-rated, uncompromising,
violent,
super violent, and the critical thing as well that people were pissed off about, of like, never the character in the comics never removes his helmet, which is a tough ask for an actor. But because I think Karl Urban is so fucking dialed in, to do this performance, right? To do a performance and never remove your helmet and be riveting and hold the screen, and it is a real extraordinary achievement. So all of that brings us to the 2012 version.
Let's talk about the Dredd character then, because I think it's a useful way to think about where this movie kind of like. Let's talk about the character of Dredd, and we can talk about Karl Urban if that works for you.
Sure, yeah. There's some other things I wanted to ask you about, but we can spike off into those things. Yeah, so it's all connected.
So we're all flying together. First of all, go ahead.
What do you want to say? What do you want to say about it?
Well, I want to first say that what I think is really effective is that, yes, Judge Dredd is like a fascist, but he's like an equal opportunity fascist. Like, he's not gonna gun down a bunch of homeless people, right, for nothing, right? He's sort of like by the book.
Yes.
And what I think he learns in this movie is like a little bit of grace through when Olivia Thirlby, for example, frees Domhnall Gleeson's character.
Yes.
And he's like, what are you doing? But because she can clairvoyantly see his past, she's like, let's give this guy a break.
I love that bit. And she says, this might be the one difference I actually make.
And that's why she passes and becomes a judge at the end of the movie.
It's so good. It's so satisfying.
Because you know what I like about it is the characters, this polar attitude stuff we've talked about for screenwriting before, you're the expert, but like he moves about this much. But that much makes for a compelling character.
Well, they said in the comics that like Dredd's character arc moved at a glacial pace. Like, he wouldn't change a ton between like even one series. It would be
because they need the formula too,
and it needs
right?
to go over it's long running, right? So his changes would be infinitesimal. So again, that choice is true to the character. He starts out basically saying she's idealistic. He thinks you can't really make a difference.
Black and white, the world doesn't change.
We just do our thing. But she actually the Domhnall Gleeson character kind of illustrates that in small ways, even if that's one person, you can make a difference by not railroading him with a kind of extreme interpretation of the law, right? Like, this is a guy who was forced into this situation against his will. Like many people was tortured, is constantly being like threatened with the most extraordinarily gruesome forms of violence, has no choice but to do the things that he's doing, is in a constant state of terror. It really is an amazing performance. I think it's no accident that this actor, who has this relatively small part in this film, goes on to play the lead role in Alex Garland's Ex Machina, or the joint lead. He's tremendous. So good.
Good actor. Always good. Good in everything that he does.
A lot of range as well. He's so good in this. So yeah, I think all of this stuff is really interesting, and I do think that it touches on, in terms of what is this film about, and the two things are connected. The character, so I think we can talk about both concurrently, the hero and some of the themes, because to me it touches on the Alex Garland Uber themes, which I interpret as essentially like Darwinism and survival and the dark side of human nature and what people are willing to do for their own, to save their own hide. And if that tracks through The Beach, 28 Days Later, Civil War, absolutely, Deus Ex Machina, Annihilation, all of I think there's elements of that.
Annihilation is so fucking good.
I love Annihilation. Yeah. So
can I add to that?
Please.
I think, and I mean this, that Alex Garland should write more action movies. You know why? I think Alex Garland is really good at taking things that are simple and making them complicated. Like a big idea of like justice is gray, black and white. No, actually it's gray, right? Like you can sort of understand that theme, but in a simple way, right? And you could think about Ex Machina as sort of being about like what is human, to what extent, like big philosophical questions that feel as though they have may on some level be yes, no, but he's really good at filling and shading and complicating, right? And like he should write a buddy cop movie, like a real one. Like I would just because I think he's really good at like taking big ideas that like we can kind of approach and go, well, like, yeah, well, this obviously justice isn't black and white, or obviously like, you know, a robot is not human, right? But he just finds these he's really good at sci-fi for that reason too, because he's able to put an idea onto a property or an entertainment or a story in a really, really compelling way. And I would love for him to write like an action movie. Like I'd love a Con Air remake by Alex Garland, because I feel like he would find something
it's just one of those
writers
that for me, like whatever he does, I'm so
he's really interesting, and he's only getting more interesting. I think to some extent.
I mean, and the line I just keep thinking about, one of the best in terms of his like simplicity and clarity, is the line from Civil War. You know, what kind of American are you? Like,
well, that's the scene of the decade. Scene. I think that's the scene. That's the scene. Whether it's like you like that movie or not, it's like that. Whenever we get out of the shitstorm that we're in, it's like we're going to be thinking about that line. And he also writes these small parts for actors. It's just incredible.
Well, the line that the Judge Lex character, I think it's Lex, the bad judge, right?
The mirror of Judge Dredd.
Yeah. The meat grinder line is like what he has this ability to create diamonds in dialogue. Yeah, that is phenomenal, and they really cut to the core of what the piece is about.
That line is the whole movie.
Yeah, and the same way that in Civil War, what kind of American are you, is the movie in microcosm. Yeah, you know,
and that precipitates
Garland is a fucking genius.
Dredd's change, right? Like he's really, really good at that, and he's good at like he kind of like he's a great sculptor because he cuts through all this. You know, stuff to get to the essence of what he wants the story to be about.
That's what I've learned with like as you know, when you're pursuing a craft and you basically hopefully get pretty good at it, but then you start to see this sort of like the people that are really elite. And one of the things that I've noticed and Shane Black is like this, James Salas is like this, Alex Garland is like this, is their economy. Their ability to distill with real precision whatever they're trying to say.
To the recent Rewatchables episode on LA Confidential, just because we just covered it, and I don't know if you listened to it, but one of the things that's really interesting is, you know, that book has 8 storylines. It's really complicated. And apparently when Helgeland and Kurt Hansen were adapting it, they were like, all this shit has to go. It has to go. This movie is about one thing. And they just found a way to take a movie, even stylistically, that's very different from Elroy's writing, you know, to make this like kind of perfectly realized 2-hour movie.
Yeah, it's often, as you say, to the sculpting thing, it's what you cut away that is often a big part of the job.
I think that's a lot of writing and art making. Yes. It's like, what do I not include?
But I think he's particularly skilled at it.
I agree.
Which puts him like right at the top. So bringing it back then to the hero, I think it's worth John Wagner, and it talked about how he'd created a Dirty Harry-esque character prior to this, and then realized that was kind of successful. And he thought, okay, we need a sort of that type of tough cop. But he talked about how the appeal of this character is someone that is both a good guy and a bad guy at the same time. And
you're uneasy watching it. Yeah, exactly.
But it does beg the question. It's like, why do we like this guy? Why has this character, who is basically a kind of fascist thug, on a superficial level, why has he captivated the imagination for 40 years? Longer, in fact. But now we're almost coming up on 50 years of this character being.
Do you know if the comic is
culture.
Running now?
Yes, it's still. Okay. In fact, I tried to buy it, but ahead of the show, tried 3 different stores around LA, all sold out.
Wow!
So I think there's, it's still doing its thing.
Well, I think on some level, the like small percentage of everyone that's a little reactionary and like, you know, a little Travis Bickle about the wish rain would come and wash this, you know, that's true. And a little bit of that's true in everybody. Right. And there's a little bit of that in Judge Dredd. But I think what makes it compelling, at least for me, is that like he kind of changes. He kind of like opens up. His sort of worldview is complicated. And he's a great character for that because he is so black and white, at least at the beginning of this movie. And
so cynical as well.
Yeah. But
he
the real cynic is
happen.
Lex.
Yeah.
The real cynic is Lex, right? Because Dredd is cynical, but his cynicism kind of just keeps things in check.
Yeah.
He doesn't think the world can change, but he's also not, at least in this, he's not like using that to extort people or taking 1 million credits from Mama, call me, to like, let's get you to a dentist. He's not using that to extort, people around him. Like he's not off the cliff, right? He's a true believer. He really is a true believer in justice. And what's interesting is that if you can allow someone like Olivia Thirlby's, more redemptive character to join the force, you make a small change in the world, right? Like, that's really interesting to me. That's why this movie is a good morality action film, because he in his book, she should have failed. She lost her sidearm.
Right.
She's like, she's not a great cop, at least at least she's not a great judge, but like, the nuance of it means something.
It's such a satisfying and again to the Garland's like economy and clear simplicity.
Yeah.
So is she a fail or a pass? She's a pass. It's like that. That's what I mean about the rock concert. That's where I'm like, fuck yeah! This movie just like nailing the bullseye, blowing out the back of the bullseye. I love it.
The wait moment.
Oh yeah,
so good. And that's funny. That's a moment where the movie's kind of funny. Because about the first 20 minutes, I'm like, I can't handle this grim, dark bullshit. Like it made me think of Hostage.
You mentioned this term to that point, which I thought was just very interesting. You texted me about this grim, dark idea. Do you want to just touch on that?
I mean, I'm not an expert on it. I think the most sort of like common comparison is, or the most like a lot of it comes from fantasy and this idea of these like
Warhammer,
really dark Warhammer.
Specifically that term.
This term was raised a lot with Zack Snyder's Justice League, the 4-hour version, which sort of gets into these other worlds, which like, I enjoyed that film. I thought it was kind of like ridiculous, but I was sort of like, okay, cool, a 4-hour
I like
Batman.
the 4-hour version. Yeah, I like his version a lot.
It's too much, but it's a vision. He's committed to a thing. Yeah. I think that's great. But yeah, it's just like oppressively bleak. And that this movie feels that way in its opening 25 minutes, but I think it redeems itself.
I think it's interesting to think it's worth referencing because not just about dystopian sci-fi, which I've always loved. It's a weird thing now because we live in a dystopian 2026, essentially, so it feels like we're living in a sci-fi. The world we grew up in the 80s, imagined these worlds and was like, that'll be really weird and dark and cool. And then now we're kind of living it. So that is a bit of a strange thing. But to the Snyderverse of it, I think it's interesting that this is essentially a kind of this is now we're like I think 4 years after Iron Man. Marvel is starting to really grip hold of the cinematic landscape, but at that stage it's the first wave of Iron Man, Captain America.
When the movies were kind of exciting,
yes, and it wasn't sort of as oversaturated. Yeah. But then inevitably they go, what if we do the darker version, the Dark Knight, essentially this is the dark superhero. So I think in that context, this is a particularly interesting character.
Right, totally. But it's a very I enjoyed Zack Snyder's 4-hour Justice League movie. I think the problem with those films is they don't really adhere to the characters' overall mythology very well. Whereas I think this movie is so disciplined and focused on what Judge Dredd is supposed to be as a property. It's very faithful.
Yes.
There's a lot of fidelity to
the
source material. I mean, the fact that Karl Urban never takes the helmet off and kind of does the one line. I mean, this is
what
like...
an amazing performance.
Yeah, he's great. And, it's an amazing performance because, like, he's not trying to earn any applause for it. He's not trying to be like, oh, look, like he doesn't take his helmet off and like throw, he's very committed to what the character is supposed to be. And I think Karl Urban, for that reason, is great. I think all the performances in this movie are really, really strong.
To the helmet of it, a little detail that I just loved. And it's a big difference. This is a difference, actually, in microcosm. This is the difference between the 95 version and this version. The 95 version, the suit was actually personally designed by Gianni Versace. Okay, so it looks very razzle dazzle, as the Versace style is, right?
Yeah.
Tends
Doesn't
to be
make sense,
it's a little extra, right? But it's like totally impractical. It's too fancy. In this, Dredd's helmet has got two massive scuffs on it. Like it looks utilitarian. It looks like exactly. It looks
Star
like he
Wars
actually
Cantina vibes.
does this job.
Yeah,
and the same way with the bikes and the details, where it's like the bikes feel practical. In Judge Dredd, the bikes a really strange choice. The bikes look like wobbly, like they're going to tip over. They don't look cool, and actually they make a joke out of the fact that they don't work properly, which to me was again a sort of tonal.
I think
like,
this is.
Don't you want them to look kind of cool?
I think this is the good thing about like figuring out how to make these movies and being respectful to the property and realizing that like people want actual verisimilitude and not the Hollywood version of it.
Yeah.
This movie doesn't feel like it was made in Hollywood. It feels like it was,
and it wasn't, right? And it was shot in South Africa, and you know, with a lot of Brits involved. But I think the last thing on that point as well about the sort of being truthful to the source material, it was very revealing to me that on the commentary and on the extra stuff, it was like Alex Garland was so concerned with and respectful of John Wagner, who actually consulted on the film, and every time they're speaking, it's the two of them in the same room. And in fact, Peachtrees apparently is named after a place in Shrewsbury where they met for the first time. He was such
a good choice.
And that, I mean, again, that's how I always think about these things, where I was like, if I was adapting a property like that, and I love doing comic book stuff, I've done a few of them. In fact,
you like
Mark
the world
Millar's
building.
I love world building. Mark Millar's on the commentary thing as well, being very modest. Now I've known Mark and I've worked on a couple of his properties, and what I like to do is just be a sponge for the creator.
Totally.
You know what I mean? You don't want to try and ultimately you're adapting it for a different format, but why wouldn't you want to absorb every drop of insight that John Wagner has about the character that he created? So I think that's like, it's not an accident that they put the work in and had the right attitude. And I just love it for that amongst many other reasons. But let's talk about one of the reasons why you love the film, the villain. Lena Headey as Madeline Madrigal, aka Mama.
Mama indeed.
Mama. Thoughts?
She's wonderful. She's great in this movie. She's great because it's like, for fun the other night, I put on Masters of the Universe, the original 1980, whatever, which is like, I know you love it. It's very bad in so many ways.
But I won't hear of it. I won't hear of it.
Oof. But Frank Langella is fucking cooking.
Oh
in
my
that movie,
gosh,
dude.
It's Shakespeare.
It is
straight up Shakespeare.
You know. And he's like chewing the scenery, but in a great way. Like that dude is Skeletor. Lena Headey's like playing this in a fairly realistic, low key way. She's a sadist. Like she's like, but she never screams. She never loses her mind.
So powerful.
Yeah, she's powerful.
She doesn't need to raise her voice.
No, it's amazing. She's amazing, and I mean, she's amazing in this movie. And it's like there isn't that much else to me to say about it, except that it's like, both her and Urban understand the assignment of being pretty understated in this movie, because it's in a way the hardest part in this movie is Thirlby's. That's the hardest part, because she has to really sort of like be the audience surrogate for Dredd's like, way of living, and she's sort of the outsider.
Well, she's the most human character.
She's wonderful in this movie too. When the movie first starts, you're like, is she miscast? And then you realize she's a really interesting actress. That she's so well cast in this movie, and I love the blonde hair. She
has a kind of innocence to her, but
wide-eyed,
tough innocence.
But when she starts killing dudes, it's like, fuck yeah, girl. It's cool. I don't know. Sorry, we're talking about Lena Headey. I just think it's a really understated, smart villain performance, and like, it's just like the scene where she's got the knife to Domhnall Gleeson's stomach.
Horrible.
It's like so. It's just really, really powerful, and I'm in love with her. So there's that too. I don't know what else to say.
I think that on the extras as well, another really cool little extra on the disc is there is a sort of live comic of Mama's backstory. So you actually, and interestingly, in that version of it, it's like a 5-minute scene where she is trapped in the life of a sex worker. She has this horrible pimp, but she has a relationship with this guy who is it's a bit like the character in Deep Cover that is like creating the slow-mo drug in a lab, but he's actually quite kind, and they have a pretty good relationship. And he's saying we're going to create this designer drug. It's going to change things for us, and then it'll be your ticket out. And then the pimp murders that guy, and then she murders the pimp in retaliation.
So brutal.
So I think it's cool from a character, the way that the character's built, that she has a kind of sympathetic backstory. She's not just like, I'm just some evil bitch running amok here. She's like a product of the times and the circumstances in which she lives, and it's all Margaret Thatcher's fault.
Fuck Margaret Thatcher. I will also say very quickly that you don't need any of this to watch and enjoy the movie. The movie's very self-contained. You know? You don't have to be a big Dreadhead.
Not at all. Not at all.
I'm not.
It's completely like inclusive, but you just get it because the tone is nailed on. And the
story is like small and precise.
And the story's clean.
This is how comic book movies should be.
Absolutely.
Like, they shouldn't be, I get
overly burdened with mythos.
No, and it worked. For
but
me,
it
worked
material.
really well with that first Avengers movie because they built all those characters as individual people, and then you're like kind of like, whoa, and then you realize that it's actually almost impossible to do that well, and doing it more than once is really tricky. Which is why I think for me the films have been less successful since later in the run. But like this just sort of like self-contained. Like they could make 20 Dredd movies. And they could all be really similar.
That's why I think it would be a great TV series.
It would be a really good TV series.
But the interesting thing is, most people probably have maybe a vague sense of what a Dredd may, unless you're like really into comics and that type of thing. Most people just have a vague sense of it. Whereas I think most people know what the Incredible Hulk's backstory is. Most people know what Spider-Man's backstory is. They kind of, they're very popular characters.
But you don't even need a backstory for Dredd. That's the cool thing. He's just a judge, jury, and executioner.
You get it, yeah. It's they do a really good job though of explaining the details in a really neat, elegant way. It is brilliantly directed. There is an ongoing controversy about quote who really directed the film. There's actually an IndieWire interview in which Karl Urban says that Alex Garland actually directed the film. At a certain point,
there's like complications.
It's slightly unclear as to. I'm not saying one way or the other, right?
Yeah, you don't know.
That's a controversial thing, and it's also not clear whether that means he like helped shape it in post, which is a very common thing, or what went on. But there is an ongoing controversy.
I'll tell you, I have a buddy who loves this movie. In fact, was like, I own it on Blu-ray, and he's a film person, but he's not like in the industry at all. And he'd heard this too. He was like, I've heard that Alex Garland directed it.
Yeah. But to be clear, Pete Travis is the credited director. We will never know. There's a bunch of different theories about it, but that Karl Urban is on record saying that in that IndieWire interview. Let's talk then. We've talked a little bit about Olivia Thirlby as Judge Candidate Anderson. I think it's a really aesthetically as well. Like as you say, the blonde hair thing. Like it's just it's a great contrast, and it has this sort of quite elfin quality that position. She looks quite delicate against this brute, and there's something about the visual contrast. But I think it's it's a great performance, and there's her idealism comes through, and yet when push comes to shove, she is kicking ass. I read as well that it passed the Bechdel test as well, which was kind of an interesting detail. Yeah. And I think she's brilliant in this. I really, really like her.
Really interesting actress.
Her character. She's had a really interesting
I was excited to see her in Oppenheimer because I had no idea she was in it, and then she shows up, and you're like, oh, great, Olivia Thirlby's back. Yeah, she's in a movie called Breaking Upwards, which was like a no-budget movie made in New York City in 2008, 2009 that everyone wanted to replicate it because they shot it on like a prosumer camera. That kind of like, it's also the star of Zoe Lister-Jones. So like, she's a real head. She's been in it for a long time. She's great.
The action, let's talk about our second to last tenet, this on an action level. Do you have any thoughts about this as an action film?
It's good. I'm not really in it for the action. I'm really much more into the like the highlight of this movie is the judges, the fight with the other judges. I think honestly, it's a short film. It's only 95 minutes. I think it could be 85 minutes if you cut some of the sort of like random shootouts with the and never-ending henchmen. But it does not overstay its welcome.
Yeah.
And it looks really good. And the tactics are cool. And if this is your cup of tea, then
it's not. It's interesting that, you know, on an action level, the Raid, you'd have to say, is infinitely superior in terms of its creativity of the set pieces and the choreography, right? But for me, I don't need that. I'm more interested in the world building and the characters and where the story's going. So for me, while I don't necessarily need the most a 20-minute John Wick style like action sequence in the middle of this film, there isn't the actual set pieces themselves aren't necessarily like that memorable.
It's not what it's about.
But yeah, that's not the point. Yeah. So it's just it shouldn't feel John Wicky. Actually,
no,
it's not. Please, this is a kind of ugly. These people aren't like super well trained. They're just gang members living in this tower block.
That is another issue I have with the Raid. Is it seems like everyone's really good at kung fu or whatever, or that the not to be glib or reductive about it, and that bores me after a while. Like I'm just like there's no reality to this. I will tell you, there's a really brilliant choice, which is to have her first kill be the husband of the home of the lady.
Oh, yeah.
Like that is just, they talk about fucking good writing.
And she has to basically execute him.
Yeah.
You know, and he's looking at her in quite an empathetic human, and you realize this isn't just a box to tick on your training. This is a human being who's essentially disarmed and powerless.
And again,
but the law is the law. And
it all connects back to this idea that everyone is a victim of circumstance, right? Again, I can't get this so smart that they're like 96% unemployment.
This movie's so great, dude.
Yeah, well, it's
so
real, I mean,
good.
It's a smart way to take on these bigger, weighty issues of what is crime, who do we consider criminals, how does the state play a role in putting people in these roles? Like, I mean, the fact that this comes out of, to some extent, the Thatcherite country is amazing, because you know, what she did to the UK was fucking brutal. And I think you can tell me better, but I still think the
aftershocks
living
live on
forever. I mean, it's the same thing that's happening here in a different context.
And the privatization and stuff. I mean, this film doesn't get too much into the, I feel like the privatization and stuff, but it's there by implication.
It's the logical end of what those kinds of policies bring.
What I found fascinating, though, was one little detail was there's a scene that takes place outside a movie theater. And there's like these, you kind of see a poster for a movie that's playing within this world. Yeah, there's loads of little really cool. But it is some kind of action film. There's loads of little details like that, and I just love the way that this. I will say this is something a bit damning. But it reminds me of certain northern towns and their shopping precincts. Yeah. One in particular were near a place where I grew up. And I'm not going to name it because I don't want to upset people from that town. But the sort of grim up north, it's not a million miles away. Like some of these shopping precincts and stuff that I remember going to in the late 80s were pretty like these brutalist concrete monstrosities, you know, and people just living their lives and buying, you know.
I mean, the history of architecture and how it is unbelievably fascinating. Anyways, I digress.
The humor, it's not a particularly funny film overall, but there are many sort of like moments of acerbic wit that come through the hardball dialogue. But I thought rather than spend too much time on that, we would just go straight into the Die Hard Oscars, where we can talk about some of the best lines.
That's a great idea.
Film.
I think that's better.
So, because I picked out quite a few, because I think the writing is just like sublime.
Very good. Let's put on our judge suits.
Yeah, let's put on my Versace design.
I'm going to scratch. I'm going to wear under my eye so that she feels like she's not alone in the world. Mama.
Okay, the John McClane Yippee-Ki-Yay Award for Best Line, and I've got I think I've got 5 different dialogue exchanges here that I just, the writing. Sink or swim, chuck her in the deep end. It's all a deep end.
That's so good, dude. Mostly your impression.
You're just like bow down, you know? And when Anderson reads Kay's mind, this dialogue exchange. Sir, he's thinking about going for your gun. Yeah. He just changed his mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
So good. Judge Dredd says, I'm wondering when you'd remember you left your helmet behind. So a helmet can interfere with my psychic abilities. I think a bullet might interfere with them more. So good. And then the Judge Lex line that we mentioned, save that shit for the rookies. 20 years I've been on the streets. You know what Mega City 1 is, Dredd? It's a fucking meat grinder. People go in one end and meat comes out the other. All we do is turn the handle.
I mean, and also just like, this is the thing we've talked about. Like, this is just good screenwriting because it's like, it gives you everything you need with a character who has almost no screen time. And it's crucial.
You understand his philosophy completely.
And you understand why Judge Dredd changes.
So great. So do you have a pick?
Yeah, it's that one. It's the last one.
The meat grinder?
Yeah, the meat grinder line.
Yeah, I love that.
But also And also the wait, and he's like, wait, you're judged, and he's like, wait, so she can shoot you, is also really, really good. That's great.
So much great hard-boiled.
It's also, there's not that much dialogue either. It's like it's a sparse.
So you got to make it count, and yet somehow it never feels writerly. It never feels like the screenwriter going, "Let's look at me and how clever I am."
Yeah,
it actually feels authentic to the world and
totally.
The tone.
Well, Garland's kind of smart in that way.
So good. The Hans Gruber Exceptional Thief Award for stealing the film. I've nominated three of our cast members: Olivia Thirlby as Anderson, Lena Headey as Mama, and Domhnall Gleeson as Clan Techie is his character. Is how he's credited.
Domhnall Gleeson stole the film. Lena Headey stole my heart.
Yes, that's a fair way to
Actually,
put it.
it's not my heart she stole, but we'll leave it there.
Right, we're gonna have to.
Olivia Thirlby stole my heart. I love her.
You need to have a cold shower after this episode.
I actually took one right before.
And yet, still, it didn't cool you down.
Wow.
I think Domhnall Gleeson is a great. While Olivia Thirlby and Lena Headey are both fantastic, I think just in terms of doing so much with so little screen time, it's an amazing.
And he you need him to you need him the character arc that moves Dredd towards his logical conclusion as the main character is Olivia Thirlby's, and she needs to understand Domhnall Gleeson. Yes. For that to work, it's so well structured. Yes. It's crazy how well structured it is.
Brilliant. The Dick Thornburg Award for Dick of the Movie. So I've nominated Jason,
the lead character,
Jason Cope as Zwerner, the first criminal who Dredd kills with the hot shot technique. Interesting about that guy. You mentioned this is shot in South Africa. I don't know if you recognize him, but he actually plays Christopher Johnson in District 9. He does a ton of the...
Is he a South African actor?
He's South African. He's an old friend of Neil Blomkamp. So he does a lot of the mocap stuff, like in camera. Cool. But he also has a small part in the film, in like the documentary stuff, as like one of the talking heads. So he's quite an interesting figure, especially in South African.
I won't get that many more chances to do that. So can I do this? Can I just do some?
Get the cat food.
How's it going with you?
Give him the cat food.
How's it going with you, Hans? All right, mate. You need a lot. That's quite enough of that, gentlemen. Get over here, Hans. Get over here. But as they say, you did lose over $1 million in Krugerrand.
Oh dear. Wood Harris as Kay, Mama's henchman, who
he's great.
taunts Anderson throughout the film.
Fucking actor that guy is.
And I bumped into him once on the street. I was like, it was in New York. I was like asking for directions for some bar or something, and the guy asked, he was like with a big group. And had this like double take because it was like Avon Barksdale. I was like deep. I was like, whoa, shit.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. That's
really cool. He was really nice.
Yeah.
Langley Kirkwood as Judge Lex, the corrupt judge who takes a bribe.
It's Judge Lex.
Really good. Really
he's
good
great.
Performance in a small
I was like, who
role.
is this guy?
And it's interesting you say that. I hadn't quite clicked for me, but it was like, I'm just me being stupid. That he's essentially the dark-in version of Dredd. That's why they cast someone that like is super
They're like
similar.
The same height.
Yeah. They have the same kind of jawline. They're the same ethnicity. They just look. Yeah, it's like
they asked me to do it because of the similarity in me and Karl Urban.
Because that strong jawline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was busy that day.
Well, this could potentially be, well, maybe not the last time, but possibly the penultimate time that we ask Marco.
We haven't done this in a while.
To introduce the best death.
No more table! Next time you have a chance to kill someone, don't hesitate.
Very good. Committing to the moment.
I really hope none of my neighbors are calling the police right now, because that was loud.
I like it. You know, if you're going to do it, do it. There are quite a lot of interesting and gruesome deaths. I've outlined 3. This poor guy, the unnamed, unhoused man who is crushed by the giant door when the building seals, who has a sign that says, like, will debase self for credit. It says something like homeless junkie will debase self for credits. Yeah. He also seems like fairly happy-go-lucky. He's like quite,
well, 96% unemployment. You're not getting a job today.
Judge Chan punched in the throat by Dredd.
Oh, that's so good.
Choke on that. And throw mama from the roof.
Let's throw mama from the roof, but hope I'll catch her. No, that's my pick, I think. I think that's really good.
Yeah, it's a satisfying bit of poetic justice.
This movie is really good because even though you're kind of like horrified by it, it's very satisfying when Dredd takes someone out. You're like, yeah, baby. His speech is so good when he gets on the loudspeaker at the for everyone at Peachtree. I also love that this movie has almost a reverse Kant trolley problem. It's like instead of who are we going to save, it's who are we going to kill? All of the people in Peachtree, or are we going to kill Mama? I really like it.
Is interesting that bit. I mean, I thought about putting this in the Die Hard DNA about how essentially her plan is to blow up the building.
Yeah.
And he essentially
calls the range on that?
Well, he calls her bluff, and it's a pretty big. You know, if it had landed on tails instead of heads, that was not great for Dredd. But
you think he can get through 200 floors of concrete?
So good, so good. Oh, I'm so glad I own this movie.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to watch it again, next week.
I buy too many Blu-rays.
So good.
I should, yeah,
all right, that does it for our for that section of the show. But we will be back with our final favorite section of the show, the Double Jeopardy Trivia Quiz, after this quick break. And we're back with our final section of the show, the Double Jeopardy Trivia Quiz. Okay, you all know the rules by now. 3 quiz questions, and you get a clue. You can radio Al Powell to phone a friend. Question number 1. Bruce Willis faced off against Dredd star Karl Urban in which 2010 action movie that was also adapted from a popular comic book series?
No, 2010. Let's do a clue, please.
The story was about a group of characters who were listed as retired and extremely dangerous.
Red? Never saw that.
It's great.
Is it good? Okay.
It's really fun. Yeah, I really like it. Worth a watch. Question number 2. Before landing his iconic role as Avon Barksdale in The Wire, Dredd cast member Wood Harris made a brief appearance as a New York police officer in which 1998 political thriller that was discussed at length on this podcast.
Was it
quite a tough one?
Was it a movie that we covered?
We've covered it.
1998 political thriller. Clue.
Mm-hmm. Bruce Willis is a major character in this film.
Siege.
Indeed, but he is not the out-and-out star. The Siege is correct, where Wood Harris plays Officer Henderson. And that brings us quite neatly to one of the penultimate edition of Convoluted Corner!
I am the law.
Featuring Judge Dredd spinning it.
Yeah, exactly.
We paid Karl Urban to come in and do it.
That's why the show's ending. We're $500,000 in
all
the
our
red.
Patreon money and all no escape money.
www.patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies, please.
Okay.
They're going to take my house.
Question number 3. In the aforementioned film The Siege, Bruce Willis's tyrannical General William Devereaux utters a particularly memorable line of dialogue that the character of Judge Dredd has also been known to say on numerous occasions in numerous iterations. Indeed, you might even call it Dredd's catchphrase. What self-aggrandizing statement connects both of these hard-nosed characters?
I am the law.
Is correct. I've got to say, I've got to pat myself on the back for that.
That was
a good convoluted corner, wasn't it?
How did you remember that from Under Siege?
From the
Siege.
I don't know. I don't
You're
know.
Dialed in.
Sometimes,
you just got Bruce on the brain.
Well, you know, I live this. That does it for our penultimate episode.
You merely adopted the action podcast. I was bored in it.
I want to ask everyone, just a reminder to please email us for our mailbag for our last episode.
Yeah.
And also, because we've had some lovely replies from all over the world. So I wanted to actually ask people, if you are kind enough to write in and you want to say if the show has meant something to you, or you want to say goodbye to us, or anything that you want to say, as long as it's nice and relatively concise, write in at diehardoab@gmail.com, and we'll read out some of our favorite mailbag entries on our last episode, which will be out in a couple of weeks. And also, please say where you're from, where you're writing from, because there's been some interesting letters so far from all around the world, and I think it's kind of cool to track where our
Germany,
tentacles have stretched.
We got America. We got Mega City 1.
Yeah. We got Judge Lex writing in. Had some interest. He was a bit critical, actually.
Yeah. Well, fuck him.
That's it for today. Yes, we've already plugged 48 Hours of Buddy Movies, our Patreon, because that is the way you can keep listening to us talk nonsense about action movies at www.patreon.com/48 Hours of Buddy Movies. That's 48 Hours of Buddy Movies. When the show ends on our final episode, which will be the next one, so you can keep in touch with us, as it were, there. Even if you just sign up as a free member.
Yeah, I mean, give us money, but you can sign up as a free member if you don't love us.
For just $4.99 a month, you get 2 new episodes and full access to the library as it grows.
I am not getting to London to propose to Lena Headey unless you give us a little bit of money.
We need that money.
I don't know where Mega City 1 is.
We need those coins. We need those credits.
We need those credits. 1 million credits.
Next time on 48 Hours of Buddy Movies is Lethal Weapon 4.
Oh my God.
It's going to be an interesting one.
Oh
Jet Li,
the
Chris
fourth
Rock.
best Lethal Weapon movie. I'm very excited.
No,
Actually, I don't know. I haven't seen it in so long. It's still good.
What about Froggy?
Froggy.
What about Froggy? Come on.
I don't.
And we have sequelitis, because next time on this show is Die Hard 5, a.k.a. A Good Day to Die Hard. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, that's maybe not the best Die Hard film, but I can promise you,
respectfully disagree, guys.
We are working very hard to ensure this is going to be a can't miss episode.
One to remember.
So we're going to try and go out with a bang, and make sure we stick the landing on this endeavor. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening and for being part of this journey as we head towards the twilight of it. Anything else to add?
We'll be back next time with a hopefully very exciting episode. Die Hard on a Blank is a podcast from Philip Gothorn and Liam Billingham. Tyson Hubley makes our art. You can hear exclusive episodes of our Patreon show at patreon.com/48 Hours of Buddy Movies. Rate, review, subscribe, and tell your action movie loving friends about the show. See you next time on Die Hard on a Blank.